You ever get stabbed in the back so cleanly, so silently, that you don't even realize you're bleeding until hours later when the pain hits you out of nowhere like a memory you wish you could erase? That's what this felt like, a slow, quiet betrayal that started with what seemed like trust and ended with everything shattered. And the worst part is, it all began with a green light. Let me give you context. Jake, my best friend since high school, the kind of friend you take a punch for and expect him to do the same without question, was the life of every party, the guy everyone wanted around because he made everything feel lighter, easier, more fun. Me? I was the quieter one, the guy behind the guy. Not shy exactly, just more composed, more aware of the room than trying to own it. But with Jake, we clicked like twin flames in two different bodies. 6 months ago, Jake met her, Ilara. And when I say met, I mean he became obsessed. She wasn't just another girl he liked. She became this orbiting planet he couldn't stop staring at. And in a way, I got it. Ilara had that still, powerful beauty, not the loud, attention seeking kind, but something deeper, magnetic in the way she spoke slowly, moved gracefully, and made everyone around her feel like they were in the presence of someone important without even trying. She was mystery and clarity all at once. The kind of person who says one sentence and leaves you thinking about it for days. Jake fell hard, instantly. He started dressing better, changing his playlists, casually dropping books she liked in his bag, and texting me constantly about what she said, how she smiled, whether a touch on the arm meant anything. And I wanted to root for him, I really did, but even early on, I could tell something was off. Alara was kind to him, yes, but her kindness didn't have weight behind it. It didn't have heat. And I started seeing this imbalance where he was pouring in affection and hope, and she was just being polite. Still, I stayed silent. Because loyalty. Because Jake was my guy. But one night, and this is where the universe really pulled the rug out from under me. We were all at this rooftop party, a warm summer evening where the city lights below looked like stars scattered on the ground, and the real stars above felt closer than usual, like they were listening. Alara was there too, and something about her that night was even more luminous. And somewhere between small talk and shared silence, she drifted away from everyone else and walked over to me. "I've always felt like you don't talk a lot," she said, looking me dead in the eyes. "But when you do, it's like you cut through the noise." It caught me off guard. I laughed, awkward, and tried to brush it off, but she didn't move, didn't look away, and then she leaned a little closer and said something I wasn't ready for. "You feel real. You listen. You see people." And I'll be honest, in that moment, I felt something shift, like something old breaking and something new waking up. But I shut it down. I told her straight up, "Jake really likes you." Because that's what a friend says, right? That's where the line is. She didn't flinch. She just looked at me and said, "I know, but I don't feel that way about Jake. I like you." It was like the world paused for a beat, just long enough for me to hear every thought in my head collide. Now here's the twist. Jake had already told me I could go for her. About a week before that rooftop night, we were sitting on his balcony, drinking cheap beer and watching clouds move over the city skyline when he said, "She's not into me, man. I can tell. If something ever happened between you two, like, I wouldn't even be mad." And I remember that moment so clearly because it felt like a release, like permission wrapped in resignation. He sounded calm, even laughed a little. It felt real. So when Alara told me how she felt, I hesitated, then told her the truth, that I felt it too, that I'd been fighting it out of loyalty, not disinterest, and that Jake had given me the go-ahead. It wasn't dramatic. No kiss. No cinematic music swell. Just two people acknowledging something honest. The next day, I told Jake everything. Not to gloat, not to brag, just because I respected him too much not to. I laid it all out. What she said, what I said, how I never made a move behind his back. And Jake, he didn't speak, didn't ask questions, didn't even look at me. He just nodded once, tight-jawed, and walked away. That was the last real conversation we ever had. And that's when the betrayal began, not mine his. I kept telling myself he'd be fine, that we'd talk it out in a few days like we always did, That the silence was just shock, not resentment. But deep down, something in me knew that nod he gave me wasn't understanding. It was a quiet declaration of war. Jake didn't scream. He didn't call me names or punch walls or unfriend me on every app. No, what he did was far worse. He went quiet, strategic, calculated. He started with the subtle stuff. A few mutual friends stopped texting as much. Invites to hangouts I normally never missed suddenly stopped coming. I found out through Instagram stories that everyone had gone out last Friday without me. It was like someone had erased me from a shared calendar and no one bothered to tell me. And when I asked one of them, casually, not accusing, just a, hey, what happened Friday? The response I got was, oh, I thought you were busy. Jake said you had plans with Alara. Alara. He never said her name out loud again, but somehow he made sure she was the reason people started turning. He never lied. That's what made it worse. He just told his version of the truth, the kind that skips context but hits hard. He knew I liked her. He made a move anyway. I told him how I felt about her, and he still did it. He made me the villain of a story where the only thing I did wrong was be honest about a feeling that came after he'd already surrendered the game. It was like standing in the middle of a courtroom where you thought you were the witness, only to realize halfway through you're the one on trial, and everyone's already made up their mind. One friend, let's call him Liam, actually told me, man, I don't blame you, but I think you should have just walked away. Like, even if she liked you, Jake saw her first. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. Like Alara was some sort of seat in a theater. Like Jake called dibs, and that was the end of her autonomy. But what stung the most wasn't Jake's manipulation. It wasn't the social exile or the weird looks or even the whispered conversations that stopped the second I walked into a room. What stung was how Jake knew exactly where to hit. See, he didn't attack my reputation. He attacked my relationships. He made people doubt me. The guy who'd been nothing but loyal suddenly looked like a traitor. The quiet one, the observer, the guy who stayed back, now seen as a snake. And Alara? She noticed. Of course she did. She wasn't stupid. She asked one night, why is everyone acting different around you? And I told her, not all of it, but enough. She went silent for a long moment and then said something I didn't expect. I knew this would happen. That's why I tried not to fall for you. And when she said that, a part of me wanted to rewind everything. Not because I regretted being with her, but because I hated that being with her meant losing everything else. But Jake wasn't done. A few weeks later, he posted a long Instagram story. Not about me directly, but full of vague, bitter lines like some people don't care who they hurt if they're getting what they want, and real friends don't go after the one person you ever really cared about. He never said my name, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew. I was being tried in the court of public opinion, and the only evidence anyone had was vibes. Here's the irony. Jake and Alara were never even a thing. No dates, no kisses, no moments. She never told him she liked him, never flirted with him the way she did with me. And yet, in his mind, I stole something from him. Something he never even had. And that's when I realized this wasn't about love. It was about possession. Jake didn't want Alara to choose him. He wanted her to be unavailable to anyone else, especially me. That's when it hit me hardest. Jake didn't lose a girl. He lost control. It wasn't until the night of the house party that things finally snapped. The tension that had been building for weeks like a slow leak finally burst all at once. And even now, months later, I still replay that night in my head, wondering if there was a moment where I could have stopped it or at least seen it coming. I wasn't even planning to go at first. The invite came through a mutual friend who said something like, hey, I think it'd be good if you showed up, just be cool, okay? And part of me wanted to skip it entirely because I already knew Jake would be there, and I already knew the air would be thick with fake smiles and unsaid things. But another part of me was done hiding. I wasn't going to live like a fugitive just because someone couldn't handle that life didn't go his way. So I showed up, late, quiet, Didn't make a scene, just slipped in a crowd and grabbed a drink. Said hi to the few people who still greeted me without hesitation. And I was doing fine, really, until I saw Jake across the room, staring at me like I was some kind of ghost he hadn't invited. He didn't say anything at first, just watched, and I kept my distance, thinking we'd both act like adults, maybe keep the peace, but then Alara showed up. And the moment she walked in, radiant as ever in this soft green dress that made her eyes look like storm clouds ready to rain, Jake saw her spot me, saw her smile at me, saw her walk right over to where I stood, and in that split second, I knew it was over. She kissed me. Nothing dramatic, just a soft, natural thing like she'd done it 1,000 times. And I felt it, the shift in the room, like someone had sucked the air out of it. Jake walked over. Slow, controlled. Everyone started watching, like a movie was about to start, and no one wanted to miss the opening scene. He didn't look at Alara, not once. His eyes were locked on me, and his voice, when it came, was cold steel wrapped in forced calm. "So this is it," he said, like he was confirming the final stage of a betrayal he'd been building in his head for months. I kept my voice low, steady. "Jake, you told me I could go for it. You said you didn't mind." He laughed, this short, bitter sound like something inside him had finally cracked. "Yeah, well, I lied." And that's when he swung. No warning, no build-up, just a fist across my jaw that came so fast and so hard. I didn't even have time to react. My drink shattered on the floor, and for a second, the room froze. I didn't hit back. Not because I couldn't, but because I wouldn't. Because I knew in that moment, this wasn't about a girl, or a kiss, or even me. This was about Jake losing something he thought he was entitled to. Someone pulled him off me. A couple of friends stepped in. Alara screamed his name. And Jake just kept yelling over their shoulders, saying things like, "You were supposed to be my brother, and you knew how I felt about her, and you waited until I gave up." And I stood there, blood in my mouth, heart in my throat, watching the guy I used to trust with everything become someone I didn't recognize. Alara tried to comfort me, to pull me away from the mess, but I just stood there, looking at Jake, trying to find some piece of the person I used to know. But he wasn't there. Whatever friendship we had, whatever bond we'd built over years of late-night talks, road trips, secrets shared and wounds healed, it died right there on that tile floor, next to broken glass and 1,000 unspoken words. And the irony? After all of that, Jake still didn't get the girl. Because Alara saw him for who he really was, not the charming guy with the easy smile and loud laugh, but someone who only valued people as long as they stayed behind him, not beside him. She told me later that night, when we were alone, he didn't love me. He wanted to win me. There's a difference. And that hit harder than any punch ever could. The next morning, I woke up with a sore jaw, a spinning head, and a phone full of unread messages, some saying "you okay?" and others just sending question marks or clips from the fight that someone had recorded like it was entertainment. And for a second, I sat there wondering how my life turned into a scene people would replay, like a highlight reel. The bruises didn't bother me. What did was how fast everything we built as friends vanished like it never existed. Like all the inside jokes, all the late nights gaming, all the times I defended him behind his back. Just erased because I became the one thing he couldn't control. He didn't message, didn't apologize, didn't explain. But he posted. Oh, he posted. Quotes about betrayal, captions like "real recognize real," and pictures with our old crew, the ones who stayed quiet, with tags like "day ones only," and I knew it wasn't random, it was deliberate, crafted venom and pixels. At first, I wanted to fight back, to speak my side, to post the screenshots of when he said "go for it, man," to defend myself, to scream at the hypocrisy, but something stopped me. I don't know if it was Alara's voice in my head or just exhaustion, but I realized the moment you start defending yourself against lies people want to believe, you've already lost. So I went silent. And in that silence, I started to see the cracks that were always there. I remembered the times Jake got jealous when I got praise, when I landed an internship and he didn't, when people picked me to lead and not him. The way he'd smile on the surface but grow distant afterward. The way he joked about me being the favorite but always with that little edge. This wasn't new. The Alara situation didn't break our friendship, it revealed it. A few weeks later, I heard from Liam again. He apologized for pulling away, said he felt caught in the middle, said Jake made it sound like I'd stolen something sacred. I just nodded. Didn't blame him. When your loyalty is tested and you fold that fast, I don't need explanations, just distance. As for Alara, we lasted a few more months, maybe out of stubbornness, maybe out of hope that love could grow in the shadow of chaos. But something was always off after that night, like we were trying to build a house on burned ground, and eventually it cracked too. One evening she just said, "I care about you, but I don't think I can carry the weight of your broken friendships." And I didn't argue. I just nodded because I already knew. We hugged, cried a little, and let it go. And that night, I sat alone, thinking about everything. The betrayal, the girl, the fight, the silence. And I realized the saddest part wasn't that Jake turned on me, or that Alara and I ended, or that I lost a group of people I once called friends. It was that I spent so long believing someone else's loyalty had the same shape as mine. Jake never betrayed me over a girl. He betrayed me the moment he saw me as competition instead of a brother. And now, every time I think of him, I don't feel anger. I feel grief. Not for what we lost, but for who I thought he was. Months passed, the seasons changed, the group chats went silent, and I stopped checking Jake's socials because every photo felt like a pixelated version of a life I used to belong to, one I now viewed like a tourist looking into a country I got deported from. And for a while, I thought that was the end of the friendship, the story, the chapter, until I ran into Jake's sister, Ivy, at a bookstore of all places, and she looked at me with something between sadness and guilt, the kind of expression that says, "I know things you don't." And before I could say much, she said, "He told me everything, and none of it makes sense." I didn't know what to say, didn't even know if I wanted to know. But she kept talking, said Jake had been spiraling for a while before Alara ever entered the picture. Said his life had been quietly falling apart while he pretended everything was fine, that he'd lost a job offer, that his dad had cut financial support, that he was drowning in resentment and self-blame, but couldn't admit he felt like a failure. So when Alara started liking me, it wasn't about her. It was about him losing one. More thing. Losing face, losing control, and suddenly everything made more sense, and somehow none of it did. I stood there in the philosophy aisle holding a book I couldn't read, wondering if the whole fallout had been less about betrayal and more about projection, about someone who needed a villain to avoid facing the mirror, and maybe I just happened to be standing closest when the glass shattered. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about something Ivy said. "He talks about you like he misses you, but hates that he does." And I realized we were both grieving the same thing from opposite sides of a war neither of us meant to start. I thought about texting him. Drafted it twice. Deleted it both times. Not out of spite, but because some silences aren't meant to be filled, and some stories are better left where they ended. But the real twist? A few weeks later, I got a message from someone I barely knew. Alara's ex, the first guy she dated back in high school. The one Jake always claimed had wrecked her trust, and he wrote this long, thoughtful message that ended with, "I heard what happened, and I just wanted to say, I've been there." She has a way of pulling gravity around her, and people fall into it. And when they do, it brings out the truest, rawest parts of who they are. Sometimes that's beautiful, sometimes it's destructive. And that hit like a hammer because it wasn't about blame anymore. Not Jake's, not mine, not even Alara's. It was about how some people come into your life not to stay, but to strip away everything false and leave only what's real. In the end, Jake didn't destroy me. He revealed me. He showed me where my loyalty went blind, where my silence became permission, where my need to be the good guy left me vulnerable to people who only loved me when I wasn't shining too bright. And if I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. Not the kiss, not the fight, not the heartbreak. Because every piece of it made me harder to lie to, slower to trust, and quicker to walk away when someone says, "I'm happy for you," but their eyes say, "I hope you fail." This isn't a story about a girl. This is a story about friendship, ego, silence, and how sometimes the person who stabs you isn't the one who hated you, but the one who couldn't stand how much they loved you and still lows.